Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of JoyBaking.com. Today we're going to make a yellow butter cake that we're going to fill and frost with a delicious chocolate frosting. So the first thing you need to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you will need two 9-inch round by 2-inch high, so that's 23 centimeters by 5 centimeters, cake pans. And you need to butter and flour them. Now when I do that, I just take a little pat of butter and then make sure you get the whole pan. And then I just take a little flour, maybe a couple tablespoons, and then just kind of swirl it around. Make sure get the sides and the bottom of the pan. Okay. And then I normally, you got to get the excess flour out. I normally just bang it over my sink, but I'll just do a piece of parchment paper, just turn it upside down, and then tap to get rid of the excess flour. So that's our pans ready. So now, to make the butter cake, if you have an electric stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer as well. And to start, you will need 3/4 of a cup, which is 170 grams of butter, and have that at room temperature. I like to use the unsalted butter. I prefer the flavor, but you could use salted butter here if that's what you like. So what I'm going to do is just beat this for like maybe a minute, just to till your butter is nice and creamy and smooth. Okay, scrape down. It's a good idea to do this just in case your butter is maybe a little firm. It's better to get it all smooth before we start adding our sugar. So now, I'm going to add 1 1/3 cups, which is 265 grams of granulated white sugar. Now I'm going to have the mixer running about medium speed and gradually add the sugar, and then I will continue to beat this butter and sugar together for about maybe 3 to 5 minutes on medium-high speed, because we want to get lots of air into the mixture. We're going to beat until it's very light and fluffy. I'm just going to scrape down the sides, and then I'll continue to beat it. If you have to stop your mixer a few times to scrape to make sure everything's getting mixed together, do that. Okay, so now I'm going to beat it, like I said, medium-high speed, about 3 to 5 minutes. Nice and light and fluffy. Okay, so just scrape down the sides. As you can see, this is what we're looking for, really nice and light, fluffy. And this is what really helps give this cake its nice texture, this long beating time. Okay, so just make sure you get the bottom of your bowl as well and you scrape. So next, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and try to use a pure vanilla extract. It has a lot better flavor than the artificial ones. And then we're going to add 6 large egg yolks and have those at room temperature. We're not going to use the whites at all in this cake, and the reason we only use the yolks, and that's what gives our cake that really yellow color. And it also contributes to a really nice, rich flavor to our cake. Now I'm going to add about half of the yolks at a time, about 3. It's not that critical. And then I'm just going to beat this in for maybe a minute. Okay, I'm just going to scrape down. It's already starting to turn yellow, you can see, from all those lovely egg yolks. And I'm going to add the remaining yolks. Okay. And we'll just beat those in. Another minute or so. Okay, so there we have it. You see a really nice yellow, beautiful batter. Okay, so next, our dry ingredients. In a separate bowl, I have 3 cups of, which is 300 grams of sifted cake flour. That means I first sift the flour and then I measure it. And to that, I'm going to add 3.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, if you use salted butter instead of the unsalted, you might want to cut back a little on that salt, or you may just leave it out altogether. And then I'm just going, you can use a wire whisk, or you could sift this again, because we want to make sure that our baking powder and salt is really mixed into the flour mixture. Now, besides that, you will need 1 cup, that's 240 milliliters of milk, and have that at room temperature. And you can use either a whole milk, full fat, or I'm using a reduced fat, 2%. Of course, if you use a whole milk, your cake will be a little richer tasting than if you use, say, a reduced fat. So now, what I'm going to do is add the flour mixture in 3 additions and alternate that with the milk in 2. We don't want to add all the flour at once because it'd be too hard to mix it in. We'd have to mix too long, and we don't want to over mix this. So I'm just start on low speed because you don't want that flour coming up in your face. And then I'm going to add about 1/2 cup, 120 milliliters of the milk now. Do it slowly. The trick is only to mix so that the ingredients are all incorporated, because we don't want to, if you over mix all of this, you know, your cake can tend to be a little tough. So you only want to, that's why we're doing it in stages here, so we don't mix too long. Okay, that's flour. And the rest of the milk. And just going to give it a good scrape. Just make sure you get down to the bottom. Okay, and I'm just going to finish off with the last of the flour. So I'm just going, there's still a little flour on the sides. I'm just going to do that by hand. Okay, so now we have our 2 cake pans. So we want to divide the batter as evenly as possible between the 2 pans. If you have a scale, like I do, And if my pans are almost exactly the same weight, so I can use my scale easily to make sure, if you want to be really accurate. I'm going to weigh them just to make sure. Yes, I'm a little off here. This one's quite a bit more. Scales really come in handy. Okay, that's right. So now I'm using a little offset spatula. You can just use the back of a spoon just to even this out. And the other one. The reason you want the two batters to be even between the two pans is so that the cakes bake at the exact amount of time the same. You don't want one done 5 minutes before the other one. Okay, so then I just like to tap, even it out. So now we're going to bake these for somewhere between 22 and 28 minutes. If you touch the top, it'll kind of spring back. A toothpick inserted into the center will come out clean. Okay, our butter cakes are now done. Just put them on a wire rack like I've done here. So you can see beautiful golden brown color. And if you insert a toothpick into the center, it will come out clean. So now what we're going to do is just let them cool like this in the pans for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'll show you how to remove them from the pan. So now to remove the cakes from their pans, first just take a little butter and lightly butter your cooling rack. And that way your cake, as it's cooling, won't stick, which we don't want. And then take either a knife or a flat spatula and just run it around just to make sure it's not sticking. And then take a rack, flip, there you go. And then to prevent cracking, we're going to flip it like that. So now we're going to let these cool completely, and then we will make the chocolate frosting. So now we'll start our chocolate frosting. The first thing we need to do is melt our chocolate. So in a heat-proof bowl, place 6 ounces, that's 170 grams of unsweetened chocolate that you've just kind of coarsely chopped. And then just place that over a saucepan of simmering water and just melt it until it's nice and smooth. Okay, our chocolate is now melted, so just remove it from the heat. Let's give a quick stir. So now what we're going to do is just let this sit for a little while until it comes to room temperature, and then we'll make the frosting. So now for the frosting. If you're using a stand mixer, use the paddle attachment, or again, you could use a hand mixer for this. So you will need 1 cup, 226 grams of butter, and have that at room temperature. You can use salted or unsalted, whichever you like. And then I'm just going to beat it for maybe a minute or so, just until it's nice and creamy and smooth. Okay, scrape it down here. And now I'm going to add 2 cups, that's 240 grams of confectioner sugar. You may know that it's either powdered or icing sugar, and sift it because it tends to have lumps, so we want to get rid of that. And just add that. Now, of course, you want to start this on low speed so the sugar doesn't come up into your face. And then continue to beat, once it's all mixed together, continue to beat it until it's really nice and light and fluffy. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. Just really nice and light, creamy. Scrape down. Make sure you get the bottom of the bowl because a lot of times that sugar tends to collect down there. And then we're going to just flavor it with about 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And again, try to use a pure. Just beat that in. Okay, and then our final ingredient is the melted chocolate. Now make sure you kind of test your chocolate to make sure it's cooled to room temperature, because if it's warm still, it's going to melt the butter, which you don't want. Then you'll have to, if that does happen, then you'll have to just put your frosting into the refrigerator for a little bit for it to harden up. So don't think, well, it's no good. It's still good. You'll just have to wait a little longer before you frost your cake. Just going to stir that in just a bit so it doesn't fly all over the place on me. So now what we're going to do is we're going to beat this first to incorporate the chocolate into the butter mixture, and then we're going to continue to beat it for a few minutes until the frosting is nice and thick and smooth and has a real nice glossy shine to it. Okay, so there we have it. See, it's really nice and thick, shiny. Now, if you found this, like I said, if it was because if it's a little soft and it's because your chocolate was warm, you could put it in the fridge. If it wasn't that, then you think it's not thick enough, you could go ahead and add a little more powdered sugar. So what I'm going to do is just clean up here, and then we will frost the cake. So now we'll frost the cake. If you have a cake turntable like this, it's kind of a handy thing to have. And I'm also going to use a cake circle. It's just a cardboard cake circle. That way it's easier to lift your cake up and around. So you can just put that down. Now some people like to actually take a little bit of frosting and put that on there before they take their... Now make sure your cake layer is nice and cool and put it on there. And that way it'll stick to the cardboard circle. So there. You could, if you want a more professional, a flat top, flip it over and use the bottom for the top. I don't mind the little bit of a dome, so I'm just going to do it this way. So put about maybe, I don't know, half, 3/4 of a cup, 180 milliliters, and then if you need a little more. And then I'm just using a flat spatula. You could use a knife for this. Just spread it. Do a little more. And just, okay, so there we go. Okay, so now just take your second cake layer and put it on top here. So just kind of gently press down. And then we're going to, some people just like to put the frosting on the top. You can do that, or you can do the sides, whatever you want. So if you have one of these turntables, kind of nice, you can just spin it around. And then just take the frosting down on the sides. can see this is a really nice frosting to work with. It goes on so beautifully. Now, some people, I mean, if you want to do it like very smooth, I tend to like to, you see what I'm doing here, give it a little design. It's really individual preference how you want. And then I just kind of, I like to be more casual looking. You can put sprinkles on here. You could, of course, birthday candles. Some fruit is very, I sometimes pile a lot of fruit. So there you have it. A butter cake with chocolate frosting. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of JoyBaking.com.